I'm standing in court following my arrest at a protest against the government's inaction on climate crisis. I was arrested under a Section 14 Public Order Act, which means that I was part of a public gathering that was considered to be causing a serious disruption to the life of the community. I've pled not guilty by means of necessity, a legal term for when an individual commits a criminal act during an emergency situation in order to prevent greater harm from happening. I already know that this won't count as an emergency situation, that the extinction of all life on Earth, the ever-spiralling man-made crisis, is not considered urgent enough to be covered in this legal jargon. I've chosen to represent myself. No lawyer, no jury, just me in the witness stand and this judge in front of me, this old white man. And he's asking me to explain how I got here, and I am trying. But it's hard not to scream, where the fuck do I start? So I go back as far as seems reasonable, to my mother. My mum was a force of nature. She was calm and kind. She was the one that you could always rely on to be there, holding everyone else together. My mum was an activist who dedicated her life to making the world a better place. She was from a very large and pretty dysfunctional family of meat farmers in mid Wales. And despite all that, she became a vegetarian documentary filmmaker in Bristol. My childhood was full of signing petitions and marching the streets in protest. I used to spend my holidays from school holding the microphone boom for her while she interviewed people about pesticide poisoning, refugee rights, ableism, systematic oppression, and air pollution. And she made change happen. She really did. Her films were shown in places that mattered, and laws were changed. And people's lives in this country have forever been affected by her work. But it's a slow process. In the 23 years that I knew her, I watched her pushing and pushing against a system that would not budge. I watched her chip away at policies, slowly shifting things inch by inch. I look up at the judge. Trying to explain how I got here is hard. And I explained that when I first went to an Extinction Rebellion meeting, I only went because a friend texted me saying there was free vegan food. It was on my way home, so I went. I listened to a 19-year-old tell me things that I already knew, but perhaps had been pushing down inside myself. He told me that the world is dying, that humans are killing the planet, and that there was something I could do about it, which up until that moment I hadn't believed. We are now living in a situation where we don't have time. We don't have time to chip away at things like my mum did. We don't have time to push and push, making barely measurable progress. Historically, it's been said that it only takes 3.5% of a population to get up and say no, enough is enough. 3.5% of people pushing against the current system to cause change, 3.5% of people causing disruption could be all we need. If we get people to stay beyond the free food and realise that all our lives depend on us truly showing up. I know I hold many privileges that make it possible and even safe for me to be here right now. And no, I don't think this is a joke. And yes, having a criminal record will affect my work. And no, we cannot recycle our way out of this. And yes, this really was my only option. So here I am, trying to explain how I got here in this courtroom, staring at this judge. But I would rather try and explain this here now than to be standing in my future, looking at my beautiful child, if I ever have one, and trying to explain to them why I wasn't here, why I sat back and did nothing, and just watched while the world burned.